Hello? Hello? Oh, oh. Would you please turn your cell phones off? I called myself. Good morning. Good morning. Let me try that one more time. Good morning. Welcome to the Youth Symposium of Compto. Will be an experience for you young people that you will not forget. My name is Raynard Hughes. I am the co-chair of the Compto Scholars Program, and today we have a lot of things planned for you young people to enlighten you, to show you, and hopefully you'll go away from here with greater dreams than you had when you first came. At this particular time, I'd like to bring before you Ms. Julie Cunningham, our CEO.
Okay, would you all just take a moment and just look at your cell phones, turn the volume down? Because we don't want that to occur during the debate, please. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Compto 42nd National Meeting and Training Conference and to the great transportation debate. Yes, come on, give it up. Let me tell you, I want to get our judges in here. So could somebody see if Keith Parker's out there? Because Luke's going to be giving some instructions. Okay, so I've had the pleasure of judging 2 debates by the National Urban Debate League, National Association of the Urban, okay, tell me you guys. National Association for Urban Debate League, thank you. And the first time was at the Transportation Research Board Conference in January. And this is an amazing thing. These are high school students. And so, all I can say is I can show you better than I can tell you. So you'll see for yourself. And then I've judged, along with a very distinguished panel at the Smithsonian, the debaters that you'll see today, that you'll hear today. On that panel were Michael Ward from CSX, Bob Skinner, President CEO of the Transportation Research Board, Michael Malanafi from the American Public Transportation Association, David Strickland from NHTSA at the DOT, the General Counsel from the US DOT, Bob Rifkin. So there were like 20 such people judging the debate teams that you will see here today. And so I'm just, you see him once, and I said to Luke and to Barbara Carney, who works at for the organization, I said, we got to get them to Compto. And then you see them twice, and I said, okay, we have to get these 2 teams to Compto. So I'm really excited about this. This is an experience that we've never had before. My understanding is when we go to Atlanta next year, I think we're going to Atlanta, the board will decide, but Keith Parker is going to be the host agency from MARTA. They have teams in Atlanta. So these 2 teams, we've brought them in from Boston. Compto Boston, where are you? Okay. And from Detroit. Compto Detroit, where are you? And so we got some definite teams in the room, and they're very excited to be here. So without further ado, let me turn it back. Well, let me just do a couple quick acknowledgments. Raynard Hughes and Tracy Bissalou are the co-chairpersons of our National Scholars Committee. And so they run this effort. They are the ones that make sure that every T is crossed, every I dotted for the Youth Symposium. They selected from 103 scholarship applications, the students that will be awarded scholarships on Tuesday. So they are the 2 individuals who lead our Youth Initiative. But they have a lot of people that work with them. So anybody in the National Scholars Committee, would you stand up so we can recognize you as well? Yeah. This, I said, you know, we have some amazing committees, but this committee does, they do a ton of work. They do a ton of work. God forbid I should have to hire staff to do the work that they do. Right, Mr. Chairman? Absolutely. And so it is very appropriate that we hear from our national chair. I know you don't have a speech, but they need to know that this is a boss, so please come on up and say hello to everybody. Thank you all. Enjoy.
You know, as a matter of time, I'm not going to take that microphone. I just want to, I really appreciate the fact that all of you young people are here. I hope you pay a lot of attention this morning because this is going to be a first for us and a great educational experience for all of you. So with that, let's get this debate on. Thank you.
The next person I'd like to bring before the podium is a young man you. Oh, bring them on in. As they come in, some of the adults that are in some of the prime seats, if you could step to another table so that they can find a chair, please, if possible.
So these students all come from North Carolina A&T Summer Transportation Institute. And they're coming down here?
Okay.
Okay.
Right in there. Let's put them right in there. It's about 20 students coming in. With all the students that are participating today that are here, would you please stand so I can see where you're at? All the students, could you stand, please? All students. Anyone that is in the first year of college or down, would you please stand? I want to see. Fantastic. You can have a seat. Give yourselves an applause. Let's step lively, young people. Let's step lively. Come on, let's come on in. Come on. Okay. Wow. This looks great. If you could see what I see, young people, inquisitive, ready to move to the next level. Young people, give yourselves a hand, please. Adults, applaud with them. Thank you. Awesome. This young man I'm getting ready to bring before you, Ms. Julie, she gave you some information about him. But when I met with him on yesterday, he's a very unique young man, has a passion for the art of debating. Luke Hill is a manager of the debate program with the National Association for Urban Debate League. Prior to him joining, he served as debate coach for Northeast University, where his team won the National Debate Tournament. Luke is a champion within himself. Luke believes in young people. Luke believes in the initiatives about what the debate team is about. Let's give Mr. Luke Hill an applause. Luke. And look how young he looks.
Thanks so much, sir. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for another one of our public debates. At the National Association for Urban Debate Leagues, we are committed to trying to bring the passion and skill of debate to as many youth in urban areas as we can. We currently have chapters in 19 different cities. This year we had 7,000 different students from high school and middle schools across the country debate in over 300 schools in school systems that are traditionally underserved by extracurricular programs like debate, especially challenging academic programs like academic debate. And so we are really happy and excited to be able to share four of our finest sets of debaters with you. We will have a demonstration debate that's a modified version of the traditional policy debates that our students in our 19 leagues participate in. It's going to be 35 minutes, and I will need assistance from each of the students in the audience because you're a judge as well. In front of you on your desk or on the table, you'll find a small quarter sheet ballot. If you don't have a ballot in front of you, please raise your hand and we can get one around to you. That ballot will ask you to take some notes during the debate, and you'll need to make a decision who won the debate, and there'll be a student judge to go along with with our fine panel of judges here as well. And I'd like to thank COMTO for having us and for putting together such a wonderful panel of judges for this event. We have Ms. Tracy Besselou, Vice President and Director of Talent for Parsons Brickenhoff. We have Jovan does not appear to be here yet, so hopefully we'll cross our fingers that Mr. Goldstein from Goldstein LLC can make it. Bob Prince, who you've met, the National Chair of COMTO. Mr. Michael Sloan, Vice President of Compliance and Risk at the Jacksonville Transit Authority. Ms. Angela Spears, Special Assistant to Mayor Alvin Brown here in Jacksonville. Mariah Stanley, Educational Services Coordinator at APTA. Linda Washington, former Assistant Secretary for Administration at the USDOT, President and CEO of the Washington Consulting Team, and Mr. Keith Parker, General Manager and CEO of MARTA. And we are really excited that they could all be here to join us for this debate. Let me run through the schedule or the kind of agenda real quick, and then I'll tell you a little bit about our debaters and invite them up. Each team will take turns alternating giving speeches, giving longer constructive speeches, and then giving shorter rebuttal speeches overall. The debate will take about 35 minutes in total. And after constructive speeches, where students introduce new arguments, the other team will have a chance to cross-examine them and ask them, what in the world did you just say? And that doesn't make any sense, and things will have that nature. So it should be a very great way that you can see how a debate works and how it's a very useful way in order to interrogate and look at policy issues and and use as a form of decision-making going on. So after the debate, just make a decision of who convinced you. Please push out of your mind any preconceived notions you have about the topic and focus instead on what they say. Our debaters will be debating the same topic that all policy debaters across the country debated this past year: resolved the United States federal government should substantially increase its investment in transportation infrastructure. In policy debate, that's a very broad topic. There's a whole lot of transportation infrastructure, everything from ports to rails to highways. So each debate round is an hour and a half long, so our students focus on a very specific example of that resolution. The affirmative today will be focusing on an advocacy and a policy idea that we should increase mass transit programs in inner cities in America. And they are going to give you the case for that coming up. So with that, I'd like to introduce our two sets of debaters. The first is the affirmative team from New Hope School in Boston. Elvis and Fatah, can you come up? And our second team is from Detroit, Michigan, from the Cass Technical High School. Taskia and Tyree, can y'all come up? Let me just tell you a little bit about these wonderful students. I've gotten to work with them to prepare for two different debates. They're wonderful examples of the type of students that we hope that debate helps help a little bit, but they're all wonderful people that I'm pretty sure were just this amazing to start with. Tyree and Taskia were champion debaters from our Detroit League. Taskia just graduated from high school and has already been accepted into medical school, and so she'll soon be Dr. Albari. She's about to start in the fall her bioengineering MD program at the University of Toledo. And Tyree is such an avid debater that he is taking a break from a 6-week intensive study of debate at Emory University this summer in order to kind of show you some of his skills today. Not to be left out, our young upstarts here from Boston. Although they were just sophomores this past year, Elvis and Fatah were ranked the second best team in Boston's championship division. Fatah is taking some time off from a program at a little school called Harvard in order to work with us today. And Elvis is coming to us after winning multiple speaker awards as the top speaker at Boston debate tournaments over the course of the season. I think that you will all be as amazed with their abilities as I am every time I get to deal with these fine young people. And with that, I will stop blabbering on and let the real show begin with the first affirmative constructive speech.
Hello, my name is Elvis Alvarado. I'll be representing the affirmative side of this debate. America has made wise transportation investments that benefit groups of people, but has left out one group of people. Who have we left out? The answer, the urban poor. The urban poor is overlooked, living under the radar. They are physically visible but intellectually unheard. But just like 19th century homesteaders and 20th century suburban dwellers, these Americans work hard and still believe in the American dream. The inability to travel has our people trapped, unable to access jobs and economic prosperity. The absence of adequate transportation infrastructure has pushed the urban poor into isolated communities, overlooked and unheard. My opponents will try to convince you that now is not the time to invest in urban mass transit, but we hope a century and a half of evidence will convince you that thoughtful investment in transportation infrastructure is a plan worth implementing. However, they cannot deny the fact that it is historically proven railways and highways gave mobility to industries, it produced jobs, it attracted new businesses, and mass transit can do the same. Transportation infrastructure has been spent on highways that only benefit society's higher income earners. Brenda Milikowski, researcher for Building America's Future Educational Fund, conducted a transportation infrastructure report in 2011. The report concluded as of right now, only 15% of federal gas tax revenue is dedicated for mass transit. President Kennedy once stated, "To conserve and enhance values in existing urban areas is essential, but at least our steps to promote economic efficiency and livability in areas of future development. Our national welfare, therefore, requires the provision of good urban transportation with the properly balanced use of private vehicles and modern mass balance between public transit and private motor vehicles." America has lost sight of the balance between public transit and private motor vehicles, as well as we have stopped promoting public transit. Thus, my partner and I propose the following plan. The United States federal government should substantially increase its investment in urban mass transit systems. Mass transit can alleviate the struggles brought upon by poverty, but not acting to reduce and distribute aid to those who need it guarantees cycles of poverty. Scholar Timo Omach from the University of Applied Science and Arts in Switzerland states from an article published in 2009, failure to address transportation inequality guarantees cycles of poverty. The lack of mobility facilities prevents people from participating in society, limits access to education and the labor markets. Poverty and deprivation structures are thus mutually reinforced. There are people living at disadvantages due to poor mobility. Not only can we help those now, we can help many generations that are the future of America. When we break the chain of poverty, a pathway to success is created. Violence is a direct effect of poverty. The desperation to attain necessities to live consequently results in violence. James Gilligan, professor of psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School, director of the Center of Study of Violence, reported in 1996, "Poverty is a hidden evil that systematically targets the weak and the poor, constantly causing harm. It has become accustomed to see large groups of minorities impoverished. The death rates of those who are impoverished are high when compared to those who occupy the gentility of society. American society has become one in which the opportunity to achieve success is limited to those who need it most. Mass transit helps the lives of the impoverished daily. Most importantly, they help the future of America. American children need quality education, but due to a lack of mass transit, the young citizens of this nation are at a disadvantage. One study found that students traveling to or from schools in cities of more than 500,000 accounted for 15% of all public transportation trips. There are still some of our youth not accounted for in this 15%. Associate Professor of Urban Affairs at Virginia Tech, Thomas W. Sanchez, stated in a report done in 2003, a number of high school students in Oakland and El Cerrito, which have significant minority populations, testified that they needed free transit passes because their families sometimes had to decide between food and bus fare. Drastic decisions that need to be made due to poor circumstances, such as food or bus fare, are not decisions we should allow. With better and easier accessible transportation, students can pursue goals. Mass transit can serve many purposes. Mass transit works on local levels, aiding the lives of the impoverished, but it also serves as a stable economic stimulus benefiting all of America. Mass transit has been overlooked and not given enough credit as it is forced under the shadow of the personal automobile. According to the United States Department of Transportation in 2002, mass transit saved $19.4 billion in congestion cost savings, $8 billion in roadway cost savings, $12.1 billion in parking cost savings, $22.6 billion in consumer cost savings, and $5.6 billion in reduced crash damages. The calculated total savings was $67.7 billion. In 1 year, mass transit proved itself to be effective. It is time for the nation to invest in its people. It has worked before and will work again. More recently, economist Chantal Fleischer stated in 2011, public transit helps strengthen local economies and reduces poverty by helping those without transportation obtain jobs that were previously out of reach. According to a study done by the New America Foundation on February 2010, each $1 billion of spending on infrastructure can generate up to 17,000 jobs directly and up to 23,000 jobs by means of induced indirect investment. With that being said, the urban poor can access jobs that are outside of their neighborhoods. Mass transit creates instant jobs such as construction, and this is a long project. It also creates permanent jobs such as management and security. Mass transit has the ability to cultivate the economy of an urban neighborhood. According to the American Public Transportation Association, new businesses and developers are drawn to transit stations where a solid customer base and consumer demands create a robust business environment. Through aiding individual lives, our whole country benefits. Fortunately, accessibility and opportunity can be given to our unheard citizens. Investment in transportation infrastructure is critical in doing so. According to Eric Mann, a member of the Labor Community Strategy Center, reported in 2006, increasing investment in mass transit is crucial to decrease social inequality and allow the poor to gain access to jobs, education, and social services. We now give those who have no modes of transportation a new generation of mobility. The ability to travel will be created, whether it's to work, hospitals, or schools. The ability to express their ambition is demonstrated by the great lengths they will travel. The main goal is to provide accessibility, for this is the land of opportunity. Thank you.
For cross-examination?
Yes.
Okay. So, can you just clarify, how does transit alleviate poverty exactly?
Okay, so people that are in poverty generally don't have jobs. They're unemployed. And the reason is they don't have access to proper transportation to get themselves to the job. So by adding urban mass transit, we're going to give people transportation.
What's wrong with the transit that we have now?
Well, not all urban areas have it, and there's some areas that is not adequate enough. It's like, and so they're not able to get to a direct location.
So do you know what adding transit in urban areas does to the economy in those areas?
It boosts the urban economies.
Okay, thank you. So, and how exactly does it save money?
It saves money in road cost savings, congestion cost savings, parking cost savings,
So it sounds like what we have now is pretty good, right?
well, if we have more
So
than,
you gave a lot of evidence about how transit saves us money, so why would we need to take this risk?
it's not a risk if we have the facts proving how beneficial it would be. And since I already have savings, wouldn't it be fair to think that if we add more, there'll be more savings?
Okay, so why you started talking about the early 1900s? Why did we switch from those railroad systems to private vehicles?
Well, at that moment, what we were doing was we was implementing transportation to help America grow.
So you're trying to take us back to the past?
No, I'm giving you examples of the federal government implementing transportation that has benefited groups of people, and I'm pointing out the fact that the only people who have not benefited is the urban poor, the people that deserve it.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Tuskia Albari, and I will be representing the negative side of the debate. First, I would like to thank CAMTO and the judges for coming in and allowing us to participate and for participating in judging this debate. Robert Frost, in his poem, The Road Not Taken, states that one should follow the path one firmly believes in, regardless whether that path is popular or not. The affirmative has proposed that our government increase investment in mass transit. I will be demonstrating to you another road and show you that the affirmative's plan actually causes more harm than good. The affirmative explains that increasing investment in transportation infrastructure will help the economy by increasing construction jobs and business expenditures. And at times, yes, spending is the best way to help the economy. However, the affirmative fails to inform you that due to our current fiscal circumstances, the perception in need to spend will not only ruin our economy, but our national policies as well, such as reforms in healthcare, foreign aid, and social services. These national policies are important in the sense that they aid the hardworking citizens of our country in paying their medical bills, aiding their special needs, and etc. According to the National Transportation Policy Project, as of June 2011, our national political discourse today is characterized by strong disagreements about the appropriate level of governmental spending and is overwhelmingly resistant to any new taxes. Due to our most recent debt crisis, spending unnecessary money is impractical and potentially harmful. Our fiscal discipline is what helps the United States have a strong and effective government. Therefore, large spending programs for transportation infrastructure could undermine fiscal discipline because the amount of money spent will force the government to rely on deficit spending. The government and the people themselves will not receive the full benefit of such an expensive plan. This leads to a reduction in fiscal discipline because the government will not be spending money wisely enough, which impacts and undermines our currency value due to this deficit spending and inflation. During the 1900s, the collapse of the US dollar created not only a national depression, but also an international depression. Our economy was in a really bad state during that time. People had to sell their precious belongings just to make ends meet, and many died due to starvation and lack of nutrients because they couldn't afford to live. Implementing the plan will not only cause a major flaw in our national policies, but it will also cripple our economy, a result that we may not be able to overcome. Not only does the affirmative undermine U.S. fiscal discipline, their plan does not effectively do the things that they say that it will do. For example, the affirmative believes that an increase in investment in mass transit will help those who are in poverty have mobility. They believe that this will narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. But in reality, this actually masks the real problem, which is relative inequity. Because the affirmative only increases spending towards one form of transportation and does not decrease the funding towards highways and railroads, because the affirmative only increases spending towards one form of transportation and does not decrease the funding towards highways and railroads that they say assist in the success of the rich, the gap between the rich and the poor will never be affected. Eric Mann, a member of the Labor Community Strategy Center and an expert cited by my own opponent, states that equity demands a mass movement of funds from highway and rail interests to bus systems, from suburban communities, corporate developers, rail contractors, to the urban working class of color. Such a transformation will not happen and cannot happen until a mass movement of the transit dependent is built from the bottom up. This is the only way to give equal opportunities to the rich and the poor. However, since the affirmative proposal does not do this, there will be no relative equity between the classes. The last disadvantage of the affirmative plan is that it undermines the state government authorities and therefore breaks the balance of power between the national and state government, also known as federalism. Right now, President Obama has given infrastructure decisions to the state. His approach to economic restructuring has tended toward the more permissive end of the federalist spectrum. The affirmative gives power to the federal government, ignoring the fact that many areas do not have the resources to account for the expenses that come along with an investment. The affirmative plan creates whole new transportation programs for intrastate and intracity level. The federal government has no authority to work on projects for travel within a state, just interstate travel. Because federalism is proven to be effective in systematically establishing democracies, other countries have also modeled the U.S. federalism. According to Stephen Celebrity, an associate professor at Northwestern University School of Law, U.S. federalism has become the order of day for numerous countries such as Germany, Australia, Canada, Brazil, and Argentina. Federalism is effective in reducing conflict and keeps the overburdened federal government's power checked. Not only that, it is the key to continued progression of human rights in several countries because it gives citizens the right to rule their own state without having to fear opposition from their federal government. Federalism has also been effective in promoting democracy across the world and the U.S. Our political system right now is based on a democratic governmental system that was originally founded by the ideas of federalism. As you can see, federalism is an important component to our political system and the international political system. Its absence causes great harm. The affirmative proposal has the right goals in mind, yet it is flawed and must be rejected. I'm open for cross-ex.
Do we live in a country where everyone has equal access and opportunities?
I believe that the government tries their best to give everyone equal opportunities.
So is there a gap between the rich and the poor?
Yes, but your plan doesn't decrease the gap between the rich and the
But do
poor.
we have a moral obligation to address this gap?
Yes, but what I'm saying is that your plan doesn't do that.
Okay, so is fiscal discipline how wisely we spend our money?
Yes, it is.
Are plans that create jobs worth investing in?
Yeah, but like I said, you guys are only creating temporary jobs. So after the mass transit system is built, those jobs are going to be going away.
So you claim that the problem now is that we're in debt, right?
Yes, we are in debt
So
right now.
are you aware of how long our country has been in debt?
For a couple of years now.
Okay. College stay often costs more than a person can afford. Is it fair to say that students take out loans and end up in debt because of these loans?
Yeah, but they also spend the rest of their money paying back that loan. And a lot of times they still can't pay back that loan.
Do you think going to college is worth it even though you have to go in debt?
For some people, it's actually not worth it because they still have to spend the rest of their life
those
paying
other
off that
people-
loans.
For those other people that is worth it, why is it good debt when we're
It's
talking
a
about
risk.
college, but
It's
bad
a
debt?
big risk that students are taking. That's why we're saying that this transportation infrastructure is actually a big risk that's actually not worth taking.
So what is the problem with a decrease of federalism?
What we are saying is that when you guys decrease federalism, what you guys are doing is that you're destroying the balance of power between the federal government and the state government. So that gives
How
the
does this-
federal
how does
government
this
way
affect
too
other
much
countries?
power.
How does this impact other
What we're
countries?
saying is that our federalism, our democratic system right now, which is based on federalism, other countries have modeled our democracy right now.
How
So
does
we
that
need to make
impact
sure
other
that
countries?
our federal government and our federal power is stayed in check so that other countries can also model it because we are a model
so
country.
wouldn't this plan make America more democratic because it's a generous act by the federal government that tries to help increase opportunities?
No, but the thing is that the President Obama has already given infrastructure decision to the states. So if the federal
Okay.
government decide to do this plan, then he's going back on his
you-
own
you
words. So
claim-
that means he's actually
so you're
ruining
claiming
the.
that our plan will destroy our democratic model towards other countries?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Hey. My name is Tyree Williams. I represent the second part of the negative block to refute the affirmative. The affirmative proposal has the most noble of intentions. However, America will never fully embrace mass transit because the car culture is so ingrained in modern society. Moreover, they fail to address the systemic issues surrounding the implementation of mass transit projects. First, increased transit will not be sustainable due to a lack of riders. They claim investing in public transportation will help urban economies. However, we cannot assume that just because we put a bus, subway, or high-speed rail in an urban community that people will ride them. In fact, there is increasing evidence that citizens prefer to drive their own personal vehicles. Fred Barnes of the San Francisco Examiner says, people prefer to travel by car because it's convenient, which mass transit rarely is. You can go from place to place directly, choosing your own route and schedule. We can do so day and night. You can stop as frequently as you like for any reason. This phenomenon has a name. Its name is freedom. The search for this freedom has pushed Americans toward their own personal vehicles for years upon years. The University of California Transportation Center conducted a study showing that in terms of the market share of metropolitan travel, public transit has for decades been losing riders to private vehicles in the U.S. Nationally, only 2.1% of all transit was by public transportation in 2001, compared to 85.8% by private vehicle, 9.9% by foot and bicycle, and 2.2% by other means. This is empirical evidence showing that citizens would rather walk and ride their bikes than ride mass transit. People don't ride the transit that we already have because it's flawed, and they're not changing the systems. All they're doing is just adding more bad transit. Second, investments in mass transportation spur a phenomenon called gentrification, which does nothing more than amplify the plight faced by the lower class. The Michael Dukakis Center for Urban and Regional Policy at Northeastern University conducted a study showing that surrounding new transit investments, and is quoted as saying, if gentrification is defined as patterns of neighborhood change marked by rising housing costs and income, we found evidence of gentrification in nearly every newly transit-served area that we studied. As investments in transit increases, property costs rise, and the urban community gets priced out. Rent and taxes suddenly become more expensive, and since the same people that the affirmative claims they're helping can't pay their bills anymore, they lose their homes. Transit investments often begin a trend of urban renewal, or more appropriately, urban removal. This is gentrification, an ugly way to tear apart communities and destroy cultural traditions. When landlords see an influx of a more affluent population, they often increase rent to accommodate for the change, further attracting the wealthy and displacing the lower class that will no longer be able to afford this housing. The affirmative says we have a moral obligation to assist those in poverty. But is it any more ethical, any more moral, to ruin the quality of life for one group of people in favor of another? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Fatah Adden. I'm from Boston. I'll represent the second affirmative speaker. The negative argues that our plan will do more harm than good, but you have to look at how over-exaggerated their claims are. First, they make claims of economic collapse and the loss of our national policies. However, our plan will not hurt our economy, but benefit it. Mass transit is the epitome of fiscal discipline. It will help the economy avoid inflation and depression. It is an economic stimulus that will provide jobs. According to Heather Bushy, a senior economist at American Progress, investments in transportation infrastructure have in the past boosted employment rates. Written on 2011, she states, increased investments by the DOT and other agencies due to the stimulus bill saved or created 1.1 million jobs in the construction industry and 400,000 jobs in manufacturing. In addition, mass transit reduces congestion, which in turn helps efficiency and our economy. The American Public Transportation Association stated in 2012, investment in public transportation can reduce traffic congestion by shifting people away from their cars. These statistics prove that an investment in mass transit is fiscally disciplined. Our opponents define fiscal discipline as how wise we spend our money. Not spending our money is not a solution, but spending our money on a plan that helps the economy through job creation and through reducing expenses is a solution. There is no lack of fiscal discipline because our plan ends up helping the economy, so an economic collapse is very improbable. Our opponents also claim that we undermine state authority and break federalism by allowing the federal government to implement mass transit. However, is mass transit the straw that breaks the camel's back? The one action that ruins democratic nations across the globe? No. Even if the federal government is the sole actor in this plan, so what? Our opponents argue that our plan will undermine our image as the guardian of human rights around the world. In the status quo, we kill people with unmanned drones. Since 9/11, we have tortured people, kept prisoners in Guantanamo Bay without trial or due process. Currently, our government uses surveillance to spy on American citizens in the name of security. To argue that the federal government investing in urban mass transit will hurt our example for other democracies is hollow and arbitrary, given these realities. Our opponents also claim that there will be no riders because no one will give up their cars. But first of all, our main goal is to help those in poverty, those who don't have cars. The negative speaks about freedom, but this freedom is limited to those who have cars. The people who don't have cars, the people who are impoverished, don't have this freedom. Secondly, as gas prices soared in the past, the use of mass transit increased. Steve Hargreaves, a staff writer at CNN, states, ridership hit one of the highest levels in decades, with officials crediting high gas prices. In 2011, Americans took 10.4 billion trips on mass transit. That's a 2.3% increase over 2010. When people with cars face high gas prices, they switch their way of mobility, going from cars to riding mass transit. The negative also argues over exaggerations of whole communities being displaced due to gentrification. But a study reported on June 2008 by Barbara Kvyat, a staff writer for Time magazine, reveals that the statistics of students of low-income residents becoming displaced are false and skewed. A study at the University of Colorado, University of Pittsburgh, and Duke University examined census data for more than 15,000 neighborhoods and found that low-income households did not disproportionately leave gentrifying areas. Studies done at 3 different universities revealed that large, disproportionate numbers of poor residents are not being kicked out of their neighborhoods. Even if some residents are being displaced, the cities can take many steps to avoid the negative effects of gentrification. According to Leslie Reed and Robert Edelman, professors at Georgia State University, cities can take many steps to avoid the negative effects of gentrification. The city of Atlanta created a task force to deal with gentrification by making housing affordable. With affordable housing, the low-income residents are not displaced and can stay in their neighborhood. This proves that the cities can address the harmful effects, and so with the increase of mass transit, we will not harm the poor residents we want to and will help. It is our moral obligation to help those in need, but we will never propose a plan that will hurt one group of people to benefit another. Thank you.
All right. Final negative speech. Better make it good. Okay. Like in Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken, today you will have to vote on a road that to some degree may not be very popular, but will make all the difference. While the affirmative is a path to many prosperity, it is a road to many disasters. First of all, the affirmative does not solve for the things that they originally say that they solve for. Mobility will not solve for those in absolute poverty because even if people have a ride to go to a job, they can still be poor because maybe they don't have a job, they are bankrupt or in debt. Mass transit is not a solution for those in poverty. Also notice that they didn't answer our relative poverty, our relative inequity argument in our first debate, in our first speech. Next, the spending disadvantage. The affirmative has given many statistics on why spending on transportation infrastructure stimulates the economy. However, this stimulus will only be short-lived. After the mass transit system is built, what will happen to those construction jobs? They will be gone. When the jobs are gone, not only will we have a new mass transit system, but we will also fall into a deeper debt crisis because the end product will not justify the means. They undermine fiscal discipline because this investment is not a smart investment. Secondly, look closely at their evidence. Their evidence only talks about transportation infrastructure in general, not mass transit. Therefore, their evidence is irrelevant to the case. The affirmative's plan will not make the economy better, but actually hurt it even more and may cause another Great Depression. Now for the next argument, federalism. They have said that the federal government's involvement for the mass transit system is important in effectively implementing the plan and has been proven effective in getting the jobs done. We know that federal funding and state planning is needed in order to implement the plan effectively. What we are saying is the affirmative only mentioned the United States federal government as the sole actor of the plan, not the state government. Because the affirmative did not mention a collaboration between the federal government and state government within their proposal, they absolutely undermine the power of federalism. Federalism must work its way up to the federal government involvement, not down. Therefore, they trigger all the impacts mentioned earlier in the debate, a shift in checks and balance system, a reduction in the promotion of human rights, and international democracy. They say that our impacts are exaggerated, but these are impacts that have happened before and have caused great harm. Therefore, that's why we are saying that we need to make sure we implement and have federalism so that these impacts don't happen again and so that we don't deal with these harms again. They also claim in their previous speech that people will ride public transit because they are targeting riders who do not own cars. If that is the case, then wouldn't they just be adding to the pollution by the cars that they criticized earlier? So no one is leaving their cars for transit, and the people that ride their bikes are now using CO2 emitting public transportation, then the pollution in urban communities will only get worse, especially since rising gas prices will not make people switch to bus or subway. If gas prices are what determines rider transit rideship, then people who have been riding public transportation, then people would have been riding public transportation a long time ago. Then transit systems would not need an increase in federal investment because of how profitable they would have been. Spending more money won't change anything. Finally, the affirmative plan conceded the fact that mass transit causes people to be displaced from their homes when they stated, even if some residents are being displaced, the cities can take many steps to avoid the negative effects of gentrification. The example of cities creating task force and providing builders with incentives is presumptuous. Every city does not have the resources to provide incentives to pay and enter the gentrification team. But let's say that the cities did give builders incentives to create low-income housing. Won't the people who do manage to stay on the same street have to move out of their homes and into this cheaper residence? We all know builders who want to make money will never build low-income housing next to a $300,000 house because even if they do, they won't be worth $300,000 anymore. So the original residents will have to live in some lower class corner of the city in a separate unequal housing. This only escalates the socio-economical and societal injustices even further. This is gentrification at its worst. The affirmative might say that gentrification does not exist, but the fact that they gave evidence citing Atlanta's task force proved that it does exist and that it is relevant. Even if you support an investment in mass transit, you must reject this plan because it has way too many flaws. Vote negative. If ever there is a day that we vote for a mass transit project, today is not the day.
I'll be delivering the last speech for the affirmative. America has been existent for 224 years, and only for 2 years have we been debt-free. In 1789, America was in a $71 million debt. Debt seems to be an issue for the negative team, but debt has existed since America's creation, but it hasn't broken us. What keeps this debt crisis from causing the impacts the negative team has proposed? Simple investment in ourselves. Millions of American kids take out loans and acquire debt to go to college because they know the investment in themselves is worth it and it pays long-term dividends. The federal government, in partnership with private business, has kept our economic heart pumping by making investments in its people. It is time for the federal government to provide adequate transportation to our urban poor. This is a matter of accessibility and opportunity. My opponents cannot deny the impacts of mass transit on personal and economic levels, helping young students get to school and pursue dreams, and saving our nation $67.7 billion in 1 year, while also having the prospects create 40,000 jobs. Does that not sound like wise spending? 4 examples of freedoms mass transit can bring are: the urban poor can access jobs that are outside of their neighborhoods. The creation of mass transit directly creates jobs. The instant jobs are construction, and this project will take years. Mass transit doesn't appear overnight. The creation of mass transit will create permanent jobs, such as management and security. Lastly, businesses will begin forming in these urban neighborhoods, and this boosts the urban economies. My opponents are concerned that through the federal government implementing this plan, America's global leadership and influence will be broken, and other countries will crumble as well. But the impacts of their federalism arguments do not apply to our plan, because in comparison to what America has already done, our plan seems quite generous, and it is also beneficial. Their impacts are huge leaps of logic. One concerning the environment: what is worse, 30 people in 30 different cars, or 30 people in one train cart or in one bus? Also, in terms of ridership, most Americans in the status quo cannot afford a personal automobile. Mass transit is the only access the urban poor will have to transportation. There may not be extremely high ridership rates as of right now, but that is due to mass transit not being sufficient enough in terms of getting people to certain places. But through the passing of our plan, it will become sufficient. Our opponents have contended persuasive gentrification arguments. But when viewing these arguments, consider the fact that the University of Colorado, University of Pittsburgh, and Duke University have all found that low-income, non-white households did not disproportionately leave gentrifying areas. 3 very credible universities in 3 different regions have all concluded our urban poor do not leave gentrifying areas disproportionately. My opponents' gentrification claims are hyperbolic. Is it true that people can be displaced? Yes. But through proper implementation, we can avoid the minuscule impacts of gentrification. For example, in the city of Boston, we have efficient transportation systems and also subsidized housing in the same areas, in the same neighborhoods, and things work. There are many examples of successful and beneficial mass transit systems. Transportation infrastructure is a part of the American narrative. Today is not just a policy debate. Today is the next chapter in this American narrative. Imagine if we didn't make investments in transportation infrastructure in the 19th and 20th century due to fear of economic collapse. Where would America be? Fortunately, we have been wise enough to think and spend money wisely to ensure we help our people by giving them accessibility and opportunity, and our nation yields long-term benefits. Mass transit is the next necessary chapter in this American narrative. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that wonderful debate. Now we have the interactive part of the morning. All of you have a ballot in front of you, so take some time, review your notes, and make a decision of should we invest in mass transit in urban areas or not. I'll give you some time. Try not to consult too much with your friends. This is like your decision. And then we'll come around, and once you've signed your ballot, just raise your hand and somebody will come pick it up from you.
they give high scores to. Yeah, okay, and that's good. That's good because you need that balance, you know?
Has all the ballots been collected? Let's give them a hand again. Young people, I want you to pay attention that these young people are students in high school. We have a couple in college. But you see how they articulate, you see how they actually gave the argument. So, let's give them a hand again. Luke, I think we had some serious participation here.
You rated higher than I did.
I changed some. I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, because certain things was good. Like, wait.
Yes, I'm finished. Thank you.
Is that 9?
78.
Okay. So those are tied. So
Yes.
So you're calling a tie?
Yep.
All right.
did, you put it up?
Yeah, because I think, like, I look at my notes now. Some were mistakenly for mistake, like,
Yeah.
if there's like, if you do this, or it's not.
You should be right on.